What does a data analyst actually do? Since becoming a data analyst, I've had a few different roles and have worked on some pretty different teams. So today, I want to help break down what a data analyst actually does in their day-to-day. I'll also be sharing who should become a data analyst towards the end of the video. Let's get started. Okay, so what is a data analyst? A data analyst is someone who gathers the data, analyzes it, and presents it in different ways to help inform decision making. Let me say right off the bat that the full scope of what a data analyst does can vary greatly from company to company. It's not always going to look the same for everyone who does it. This is due to a few different factors. The first is the varying types of analyst roles. You have business analysts, business intelligence analysts, product analysts, and many, many more. There are tons of different titles out there for data analysts, and they all do slightly different things. The second is domain. What industry is your company in, and what team do you support specifically? Not every data role out there is going to be on the IT team. The third is company tech stack. What tools does your team use? That's really going to affect what your day-to-day looks like. And the fourth is team size. I've been a solo analyst supporting a specific department, and I've also been on a data team. The size of your team and company is going to determine your responsibilities and the full scope of your work. But despite all these factors, there's still a lot of overlap. At the end of the day, you're still going to be collecting the data, analyzing it, and presenting it. So what does the workflow of a data analyst look like? Let's break down what completing each of the three steps that I've already mentioned actually looks like. Starting with gathering the data. A big part of determining what data you need depends on the full scope of the project. These requirements are often gathered through stakeholder interviews. And a stakeholder is whomever you're creating the report for. Interacting and collaborating with stakeholders is a huge part of what a data analyst does. In my personal experience, you often have to meet with stakeholders multiple times throughout the length of a project. A project can also take anywhere from a few days to a few weeks to a few months to complete, depending on those requirements, as well as your access to the data and the quality of that data. Requirements can also sometimes change throughout the life of the project, and you often need approvals before the project is actually finished. So with that, let's talk about analyzing the data. Prior to analyzing the data, you need to determine what data you need, as we've already mentioned, and then you need to ingest that data if it hasn't already been done. Companies often use a plethora of different tools throughout each team to fulfill the needs of the business. Not every team is going to be using all of the same tools. This is especially true for larger companies. A small company or startup might have a relatively simple and basic tech stack, but when you're getting into really big companies with thousands or tens of thousands of employees, there's usually going to be a lot of different tools that are used throughout each team. For example, the sales team, the marketing, the IT team, the billing and collections team, they might all use different services. This data and all of its tables may or may not already be ingested into the data warehouse. Say you're supporting a project from the marketing team and you need to analyze data from a survey that they use through a tool like Typeform. And let's say your company uses Snowflake as their data warehouse. We need to establish a connection to Typeform through an ETL tool before we can ingest it to Snowflake. This is often completed alongside a data engineer and or a data architect who are usually the ones helping with ingesting the data. Sometimes the data will already be readily available as it's already been ingested, so you might not have to jump through as many hoops to begin the project. Either way, once you actually have access to the data, then you begin analyzing it. How you analyze the data will also depend on what tools your team has access to. And then the size of your team, and again, the tools you have, is going to determine maybe how much data cleaning that you need to do as a data analyst. You might be doing a lot of the analysis itself within SQL, or you might be doing some of that analysis within your BI tool that you'll be using to present, like Power BI, Tableau, or Looker. And that brings me to the third aspect of what a data analyst does, presenting the data. This is your report development and how you present the data that you're analyzing. As mentioned, this is often completed using a BI tool or business intelligence tool. Here you'll complete your analysis and put together your visuals. You'll also want to make sure you automate as much as possible with the report so that you don't have to do as much to maintain it moving forward. This is also also where we'll gather feedback from stakeholders and get the approvals that we need to complete the project. Sometimes those are pretty quick fixes, or sometimes those can be pretty big changes to the report. Sometimes you might also find during this process that there's issues with data quality. This requires doing some data validation to see where the issue is stemming from. Achieving this might look like doing some SQL querying in Snowflake and then exporting that data to Excel to dig further into the specific data that you're looking at. It could also be the case that the data quality issue lies with the data that your stakeholder is using, in which case they need to go back and make changes on their end. These are all things that can prolong the length of a project, and I want to mention again that this is largely going to depend on what your role is and what resources your company has access to. Now let's look at the day-to-day of a data analyst. Your days are often going to look quite different from each other as a data analyst. If you're part of a smaller team or company, you might be wearing multiple hats. If you're part of a larger team or company, you might have a bit more routine in your role. But either way, you'll usually be juggling multiple projects at once. You might even get ad hoc tasks that pop up out of nowhere. Sometimes you might get a random request to do a quick analysis before the end of the day and it's already 4 p.m. That sort of stuff happens in a role like this. For me, I'm never completing all 3 of the steps that I mentioned earlier in a single day. Some days I'm in a ton of meetings. Some days I'm just doing a lot of deep work, but it's usually a mixture of both. All right, so why did I become a data analyst? When I transitioned into data, I wanted to be in a high demand field with a high earning potential. Prior, I was working in an operations supervisor role, working 50+ hour weeks and making a lot less money. When I became a data analyst, I experienced a 26% compensation increase just for my first data role alone. So the pay was and is something that's important to me. But another thing that I love about the field is the work-life balance. The data field attracts people from all walks of life. I've known people from all sorts of fields who've made their way into this career path. One of the best things about it is that you don't necessarily have to go back to school for a formal degree if you're coming from a non-technical background. But overall, I'd say if you're someone who's inquisitive, who loves solving problems, who's curious and loves asking questions, then data analytics might be a good role for you. However, another big aspect of the job is collaboration and communication. Like I mentioned earlier, you'll be doing a lot of interacting and project management for stakeholders and working across different teams. Because of this, your ability to work well and communicate with others is hugely important. And that's it. What do you think? Did I explain the role well enough? Was there anything that I missed? Definitely let me know in the comments below. If you did enjoy the video, feel free to check out some of my other content over here.